Hi everybody, welcome back to Lost Game Chronicles. My name is Kelly, and today we are counting down my 10 favorite games that I played on the channel this month. Let's get into it. At number 10, we have Kingdoms and Castles. Kingdoms and Castles is a medieval city builder where you create and defend a kingdom from dragons and Vikings as well as other AI kingdoms. Placing the roads in the houses are really satisfying. It's one of the few city builders where you have to place the roads before you place the houses. But I actually found that aspect of planning to be really satisfying. I guess in some ways it's like City Skylines in that way. There's actually a really nice progression. It starts out very, very simple to the point where I was actually a little bit concerned that it was maybe too simple. But as the population grows, you will find that there's a lot more depth to this game, and particularly once you start getting into the defensive aspects of the game, where you're actually defending against dragons and Viking raids and all kinds of things. It's really quite satisfying. The game is also gated by population, so mechanics will unlock as you grow. So for example, once you're big enough, you'll be able to unlock things like taxation and medical. I also absolutely loved the little people in this game, the little, like, your citizens. They are so cute, and it's so fun just like watching them scurry around, and the way they carry stuff is just hilarious. I got so much joy out of just watching them move around the map, which is, you know, something you enjoy in a city builder. You like watching your people interact with your world. And so, yeah, I found that really satisfying here and just fun. The raids and the dragons are really cool, really dramatic. I put out a little short on a dragon attack on my village at one point. They come in, they burn villages, they kidnap your villagers before they just kind of run off the map. I don't know if there's a way to get your villagers back. I haven't figured it out if there is, but yeah, you can have your villagers attacked. You also have issues with dragons burning your villages. The Vikings will do that as well. Just start setting fire to everything. And it's really fun watching like the little people run around with their buckets of water I just love watching them. It's so much fun. I can't get over that. But yeah, it's just really nice to look at. It's a nice, simple, lightweight, what I would call like a true city builder. This is an indie game, but it's in full release, so if you like city builders, I definitely recommend this one. It's really, really fun. At number 9, we have A Building Full of Cats. This is a hidden object game. None of these lists would be complete without a hidden object game, and in this one, you have to find cats that are hidden in an apartment. There's really not much to say about it other than that. It's just a really super chill, relaxing game where you can just kind of search for cats in a building. I'm finding these games really, really soothing, especially for recording when I need something that's a little bit lighter and a little bit chiller. It's a great backdrop for me to just kind of talk about life and channel stuff and just kind of give you guys updates. I hope that you're enjoying them when I do them. I'm trying, you know, to just kind of scatter them throughout my content. In a very short time, I found that these are some of my favorite videos to make. It's just very low pressure and kind of zen. And these kinds of hidden object games are great. And this one is no exception. This one, you have several levels, you can kind of move freely between them. There's no pressure to like finish a level. If you get frustrated, you can't find the one cat. The cats range from very difficult to find to very easy to find. And of the 3 levels that I played, I actually only managed to complete 1. I still don't know where the cat was in that first level, even after editing and releasing the video. If anybody finds it, I would be absolutely thrilled to know where it is in that first level. But the video will probably be linked in the description if you're interested in trying to find one really, really elusive cat. But this is particularly cool because you can kind of click on elements of the map which reveal sort of cats hidden inside boxes, which is something that is pretty standard in most hidden object games. It's just a really relaxing game. Good for travel, fun, satisfying, which is what hidden object games should be. At number 8, we have Outer Wilds. I've been putting off playing this game for quite a long time, probably a year and a half. My friend bought it for me for, I believe it was Christmas or maybe my birthday a couple years ago. And it is rated overwhelmingly positive on Steam. In this game, you play as a brand new astronaut about to set off to explore the solar system for relics from an extinct advanced civilization. You quickly discover that you are caught in a time loop, which is in the game description, so that is not a spoiler. So the solar system is small and space travel is very simple relative to other space games that you might have played. But that's kind of the strength of this game, because it's not just about space, it's about the concept of a time loop. So the story seems super cool. The civilization with its relics are really neat. There's like a little museum in the first town that you leave from where there's like rocks that move actively when you look at them and crystals that change the direction of gravity and stuff. That little museum was really, really cool. I quite enjoyed going through that. The planets in this particular solar system are really unique. There's something called the Hourglass Twins, where there's two planets caught in each other's gravity. They're called Ash Twin and Ember Twin. Giant's Deep, which is a water planet with islands. Brittle Hollow, which is sort of like a planet's shell that's hollow inside. And then there's something called the Dark Bramble, which is sort of just a mess of nonsensical rocks that are fused together in the outer solar system. There's also several moons and other objects such as wreckage and stuff to explore. But essentially, this game is about Groundhog Day. You keep your memories while everyone else forgets with each new reset. The goal is to figure out what's causing the time loop by exploring these abandoned sites and trying to figure out what this ancient civilization has to do with this time loop that you're stuck in. But the game is really super cool. The story is super fascinating. My only issue is that this game strongly recommends controller, which I did use for this particular video, but controller is not my preferred way to game. I'm very much a PC gamer, so using a controller is like pretty foreign to me. The way that the space travel works, I found like the lack of gravity and atmosphere to be kind of jarring. You assume that there's going to be effort that you need to put into getting off of the planet, but there is no gravity and there's no atmosphere, so you kind of just shoot out into space. The distances between objects are also really, really short, and the planets are very small, so it's like you could probably walk around the entire perimeter of a planet in a reasonable amount of time. It just takes a little while to get oriented to that, and it would definitely get easier the more playtime you put into it. But because of those things, it ends up feeling very artistic in how the world is rendered. The graphics are beautiful, and sort of by abandoning the idea of physics and how you expect these types of games to work, they're really able to be creative in the types of locations that you explore and the way that they tell their story. So I think that that's actually ends up being a great service to this game. I absolutely recommend this game, especially if you're okay with using controllers. If you're not, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. And if you like cool stories, I think that you'll probably really enjoy this. So that was number 8, Outer Wilds. At number 7, we're gonna go with Dorfromantik. It's labeled on Steam as a strategy city builder, but it's actually, I would describe it more like a world builder. You essentially lay hexagonal tiles to create a continuous world that includes villages, forests, lakes, rivers, railroads. as well as unique unlockable tiles, such as beaver dams, bridges, windmills, that kind of thing. You start with a stack of tiles, and each time you lay one, it has a chance of generating a quest. Quests are usually to group a type of tile together. So for example, it might require you to lay 800 trees in a single continuous forest, or 30 houses in one village, for example. So not 30 tiles, but the number of houses on the tiles, if that makes sense. When you complete the quest, you're rewarded with more tiles. And as you go on, you can unlock new biomes and more unique tiles. The game basically ends when you run out of tiles. It's super, super relaxing, very satisfying when you get the exact right tile to fit a space. It's similar to Islanders, which we played, I believe, last month. But as a relaxing, low-stress city builder, I think I prefer this one because it's strategic without the fear of running out of space. The running out of tiles is similar, but running out of space feels frustrating, whereas running out of tiles feels like, oh, I've got to complete more quests. There's a motivation there rather than just frustration. But it's also really beautiful. I just love how the biomes sort of change the landscape as you unlock the new ones. It's just a really beautiful, relaxing game. So if you like that kind of thing, absolutely go check it out. At number 6, we have News Tower. This is a game where you manage a newspaper in the early 1930s, reporting on historical events and choosing what gets into the news each week. I have a really soft spot for these kinds of games. I love management sims. I love having to balance cost and revenue and creating an efficient system for producing anything. In this case, news, including reporters and typesetters and editors and all of that kind of thing, and making sure that you sort of have an efficient workflow. Managing the needs of your employees, of course, along the way, which includes making sure your comfort items are well placed, making sure that you have the right number of supplies and that you don't run out of things. Each employee has a specialization. This is most prominent and relevant in reporters, which specialize in things like sports and politics and economy and crime. I think there's 6 to 8 different types of specializations for reporters. Each week, you pick which stories you send your reporters out to investigate. You have to navigate the competing demands from politicians, wealthy patrons, the mob. You choose the layout of your paper each week, and you get bonuses for grouping certain types of stories together, which results in higher revenue. Now, this game is still in early access, and it doesn't take long to realize that it's very much not done yet. But it is in a highly playable state at the moment. But you will find that you hit a wall eventually. So there's clearly parts of the game that aren't done yet, such as certain roles within the newspaper that have just very little to do with the overall daily management of the paper. There's also a world map that is not yet unlockable, which will eventually allow you to run international stories. But the game is super fun in its current state. Growing your tower, expanding your printing capabilities, building a workforce to sort of fill your expanding number of pages is all super fun. You also, along the way, unlock new sections of the New York City map, winning over subscribers by printing stories relevant to their interests, such as like gruesome crime stories or alarming economic stories, and each part of the city wants different kinds of stories in the paper. So navigating that is pretty fun. I think this is going to be a really, really good game when it's done. It's in a very playable state at the moment. It's probably even worth the price tag in its current state, although, do your own research. It's really fun. I really enjoyed it, so definitely check it out if this is the kind of thing that you like. At number 5, we are going to have Dredge. So I found the top 5 really difficult this week. All of these are incredible games, and any one of them really could have been number one quite easily. Dredge is a game that released about a year ago, which sits in sort of the unique genre of fishing horror games. It's indie, and it's heavily inspired by Lovecraftian horror. Horror comes in this game from mechanics around darkness and the unknown of what lays below the surface of the ocean, and the insanity and fear that comes from considering those two things. But you play as a fisherman who has just taken a job on a series of remote islands. Your boat crashes in sort of oppressive fog and darkness the moment you arrive in the region. Chillingly, that crash occurs right at the foot of a lighthouse, which I think was active at the time. But anyway, it immediately sparks suspicion in me as the player as to what this character has just walked into. Everything about this game is creepy vibes. Music, characters, dialogue. It's very atmospheric, and it does get you paranoid very, very quickly. Everything seems quite idyllic in the day. It's just a fishing game. You go out and you catch fish, and you fill your boat, and you collect salvage from sunken and wrecked vessels, which seem very, very common in the area. And you're warned the moment you arrive not to travel between islands at night. Don't go out at night. At night, the darkness it feels, as a player, just like a little bit too pressing. The light doesn't seem to penetrate it as far as it should. If you're in town, it seems fine. But if you do travel at night, you will slowly go crazy. And as you go more crazy, strange things begin to happen, such as rocks appearing out of nowhere. But there are always hints that there's weird stuff happening, including sort of catching deformed versions of fish, eerie notes found in bottles, and a strange red light on the horizon every night, basically. I did get brave at one point and decided to check out this light at night, the red one, and you will go very, very quickly full crazy. I found myself fleeing for my life from a giant anglerfish that seemingly disguises itself as another boat, malfunctioning lights on my boat, and rocks that just kind of jumped out of the darkness at me until I managed to get back to the nearest port. I imagine as the game goes on that you will get to figure out, what actually is happening. But for now, early game, I would say just stay away from the red light. This game spans several different biomes and zones. As you earn money and collect salvage, you're able to upgrade your ship so that you can travel further afield and travel more safely at night. The story is really gripping. This is a game I haven't finished yet, and it is a game that I do plan to return to on the channel, probably looking at maybe once a month releases on it. We'll see how things go, but this is a game that I will probably try to finish on the channel at some point. If you like the sound of that, if you like Lovecraftian horror and psychological horror, this might be the game for you. At number 4, we have Dwarf Fortress. Dwarf Fortress is a colony management simulator that more or less launched the genre back in 2006 when it was first released. This game has undergone a lot of improvements since then, but it's still widely recognized as being the premier colony sim. And after playing it, it's really not hard to see why. It is very detailed. Everything is simulated. When you start the game populates a history of the world that is entirely unique, including kings, conquests, founding and destructions of villages and civilizations, legendary creatures that have whole histories of things that they've stolen and killed and all of these things. The sheer amount of creatures in this game is staggering. There's kobolds, there's goblins, there's elves, there's humans. There's also rat men, snake men, owl men, ettins, giants, cyclops, dragons, hydras, giant eagles, harpies. Everything that you would expect in a good fantasy game, essentially, is found here. You start the game very much in the way you do in RimWorld and other colony sims, which is just by generating your world. It's history and a starting party with limited supplies arriving in their new home in spring. You start with a handful of dwarves, and you can immediately set about digging into the mountains and digging out a new home. This game is notoriously very difficult, and if you're a colony sim player, you'll probably find that it's not so much difficult as it is, I would say, difficult to learn. The thing that you have to remember when you're playing this game is that it will not hold your hand. You have to do everything. You have to direct them to make meals and cups to drink from and individual items of clothing down to individual socks. There are hundreds of different ores and types of gems and rocks. Once you get the hang of this and get the sort of manager in place to handle work orders, managing your fortress starts to become a lot easier. Much like RimWorld, this is a game that lends itself to storytelling. So it's not just about digging. You are building guild halls for guilds which form around specific professions. You are investigating murders and thefts. You are building accommodations for visitors. You manage your production chains. You create a military and an infrastructure that supports them. The crafting menus, the sheer amount of things you can build in this game are just absolutely staggering. Earrings, instruments, crowns, books, gem cutting and setting, kids' toys, dice, parchment, all kinds of things, with options to create things from bones and shells and teeths and gemstones. There are just dozens of different kinds of stone and metal, and it's completely staggering what you're able to create in this game. Occasionally you'll create masterworks or even named items, like things that go down in history that literally you may fight wars over. And in addition to sort of the generative history element, there are hundreds and thousands of different kinds of books, poems, poetic forms, dance styles, which get put to use in the tavern as well as the library. Each one has a really detailed description, so you can actually go in, click on an individual book, and it'll tell you a very detailed description of what's inside of it. As well as many of these things end up getting based around historical events that may have happened decades or even centuries ago in your world. It becomes really fun after you learn what you're doing, which took me, even as a very experienced colony management player, this took me a few hours to learn. In total, I've played like 30 plus hours of this game since I first tried to play it, and I still feel like I'm just scratching the surface of what it has to offer. There's a reason that this game is still going 18 years later. Right now, I am completely enamored with this game. It's highly recommended, super fun, but definitely if you're new to Colony Sims, it's gonna take you a while to learn it, and even if you're not new to Colony Sims, it'll probably still take you a while to learn it. So just go in with that knowledge, and I think you'll have a great time. At number 3, we have Chants of Sennaar. I knew when I read the description of this game that I would love it, and I did love it. This is an adventure puzzle game where you translate languages. It's inspired by the myth of Babel, which, in short, is a story about how the gods felt that humans were overreaching and punished us by breaking us into different languages. It's basically a myth about the origin story of human language. And in this game, you interact with people who don't share a language with you, and you have to use context clues to figure out what people are saying, and you log them in your journal. And as you learn more words, it'll become easier to communicate with those particular people. There are several classes of citizens. They range from priest to warrior to peasant, and each one of these has their own language which needs to be translated in order to speak with them. You use what you know about each language to solve puzzles as you figure out more of their words. You unlock new locations and you try to ascend up a pyramid. It's just a really, really cool and unique concept for a game. I've never played anything like it. And it was really, really satisfying to figure out what different words mean. The art style is just very, very cool. It's rated overwhelmingly positive on Steam. That is very well deserved. This is a really, really neat game. If you like puzzly adventure games, then this is probably for you. Number 2 is going to be Megaquarium. The crazy thing about this is that I've been looking for this game my whole life. Apparently somebody finally made it back in 2018. As someone in the comments mentioned, this is basically Zoo Tycoon for fish. You build and run your own public aquarium. I know a fair bit about fish. I've been a fish keeper on and off for a decade or two. I've had several aquariums of my own, and I used to work in a fish shop taking care of and selling people fish. I consider myself to be sort of a intermediate to advanced fish keeper, and this is by far the most detailed game about fish that I've ever played. It covers saltwater and freshwater. The traits of the various different fish are quite accurate. Fish that are known to be aggressive are labeled as such. It covers more nuanced behaviors such as nibblers, so fish that attack the fins of fish with long or fancy fins. The max size of various different fish and their growth patterns, swimming and schooling behaviors, and even the types of breathing behaviors and compatibility, like certain angelfish being territorial to other angelfish and specific tangs picking at corals. These are all very realistic behaviors. There's many different kinds of food. Each fish has a specific type of food that they need. There's dozens of different kinds of plants and decorations. Different fish have different preferences in terms of decorations. Some want lots of plants, some want lots of hiding spaces or caves. You'll slowly unlock new types of fish as you level up in your research. And this also very realistically simulates water conditions in a very detailed manner, such as acidic and alkaline water and fish that have preferences related to that, temperature preferences, which are addressed just in broad terms, such as tropical versus cold water, a variety of different options and configurations with various elements to achieve the water parameters appropriate for specific tanks. This is just a really fun game, like just going around, goofing around and finding tank configurations that work. I found myself moving fish around quite often as I unlocked new ones to achieve the perfect mixed species tanks where everybody is happy and has everything that they need and everybody's living happily together. It was just a really, really fun game. I really, really enjoyed Megaquarium. And if you like fish or you like Zoo Tycoon type games, you'll probably like this one. It's just really, really fun. Lots of depth. Just like watching the little fish swim around is just really cool. So yeah, that's my pitch. Megaquarium, go check it out. And number 1, we have Book of Hours. This may come as a surprise to anybody who really watched the original video that I did on this. My first couple hours of playing this game were a bit confusing. It was sort of me just bumbling through it. This is a game where you arrive on a small island to look after and restore an enormous 1,500-year-old occult library, which apparently suffered a fire about 10 years ago and has been abandoned since. But once you get inside the library, you find that there is no sign of fire. So what happened and why was it abandoned? It's a mystery. This game was made by the same people who made Cultist Simulator. So it uses similar mechanics with the cards and specific attributes to achieve specific goals. Unlike Cultist Sim, this game is very much more forgiving. You move at your own pace in this game, and achieving the results you want can be accomplished in a number of different ways. So if something doesn't work out exactly the way you wanted it to, there's probably another way to do it. After moving into the library, you're faced with a staggering number of rooms, each one of which has to be unlocked individually. The game kind of revolves around the mechanic of elements of the soul, and in this game there are 9 elements of the soul, which you unlock for yourself by successfully reading through the hundreds of books that are hidden in rooms throughout the library and unlocking the skills that they can teach you. You have a limited number of soul elements each day. This more or less represents your energy, and they reset each day at dawn. Every item, book, skill, every card that you can get in the game has a certain number of soul elements associated with it. So to unlock new things, such as rooms or identifying a book or reading a book or unlocking a new skill, you have to achieve a certain number of those soul elements in order to unlock it. Nearly everything in these rooms that you unlock are interactable, and each item has a list of attributes or soul elements, but also things like materials, its uses. Something might be consumable, or it might be a comfort item. It might be wall art. The lore in this game is also genuinely impressive. The history of the library is broken up into a number of different eras, and each room in the house has a bit of lore that's attached to the families and the librarians and the groups that previously inhabited the place, all the way back to when there was no library there at all, and instead was just a coven of witches who made their home in the cliffs. Each room has a chance of having a couple of books in it, sometimes more, and each of these books is from a specific era and has history and story that are associated with that era, unlocking the history of the place as you get deeper and deeper into the library. There's different crafting stations that allow you to create items with more powerful souls, and the deeper you get into the library, the harder it is to unlock new rooms, new books, requiring you to make use of the crafting stations to create appropriate items to help you get into those rooms. I've played a load of this game, and I fully intend on completing it. It's really, really relaxing. It's really fun. Learning the new lore around the books and the different parts of the library is just really fun and really interesting. It's just overall a really satisfying game. Unfortunately, it doesn't translate super well into YouTube videos, but this is a highly, highly recommended game by me as just a chill, puzzly experience where you have to use your brain power to figure out the next steps, but the game is still very forgiving of your mistakes, which is the thing that I appreciate most about it. And that's it for my top 10 this month. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please consider dropping a like if you did enjoy it. If you missed any of the original videos that I did on these games, they will be linked in the description. And if you're interested in checking out any of these games for yourself, they're all available on Steam. So let me know what you thought of the games that I've listed here and whether you agree with any of the rankings. And don't forget to let me know if you have any ideas for what I should try to play next month. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!